All right, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode 230 for the week of February 24th. This is DBQ Hams on the mic leading us through the podcast, but we've got all four of us here tonight for a very special podcast, not only because it's all four of us on episode 230. I don't even know really 230, but this is also the last episode for a while that SwissGuard will be joining us in the regular rotation. So it has been, gentlemen, it's been since the fall of 2016 since we've had this regular rotation of the four of us. We've been going since before that in, I would say fall of, it has been many iterations of this podcast between Tao and GameLogIQ, and then myself jumping in 2015, and then SwissGuard joining us in 2016. So from all that time and multiple, like a good comic book, we renumber ourselves and relaunch ourselves and change up our formats. But the four of us have stayed consistent. And while we are sorry to see one of us take a step back, we also understand that you need to take care of life and family and new endeavors. And so we are glad for whatever comes next for you, Swiss. We are very thankful. I am very thankful for your perspectives, for our Gambit runs in Destiny 2, back before you swore it off, for the times when you've brought Vela on and shared some perspective with us, and also for your ever-loving Sony fanboyism that is always appreciated as well. So I am glad that you and I got to do one last Nintendo focus show 2 weeks ago, but now it's a chance for all of us to say thank you and to wish you well and to know that you are always welcome. There is an open mic here for you as well. GameLogIQ, Tao, any other thoughts? Any other best wishes, good riddance, shake your dirt from his feet, whatever we want to do with SwissGuard here tonight?
No, I'm very sad to see my my bearded brother going away, at least for a little while. So I'm sure he'll be back at some point, at least for guest stars at the very least. But yeah, it's been great having you on, Swiss. And you know what? Your Sony fanboyism has rubbed off on me, as you'll see here in a little bit. So thank you.
I don't have anything to add. Of course, Swiss is just leaving the rotation. His chair is still here. So
yeah, I appreciate all that, but I mean, I'll be back from time to time. It's just not like on a regular schedule. So I'll be lurking and hovering around the Discord, throwing crap on the news slate. So
that's good.
Get rid of me that easily.
That's good. So all my best wishes and good luck with your whatever is all for naught, because you're not going anywhere. You're just taking a step back for now. So regardless, we've got too much of a show to navel gaze too much more. So let's jump in. You've heard from all four of us, GameLogIQ, Towmaster, and SwissGuard. All four of your Enough to Keep Going hosts are here tonight. We've got our game experience. We've got both our new releases and some stories. We've got our Sony first party assignment that we'll talk about. Anything else that's been in our game rotation, we've got a chance to talk about, along with some news stories that have popped up along the last week or two. And we might even, in true E2KG fashion, we might even throw ourselves a new assignment for the next coming weeks as well. So, gentlemen, before I launch into what I've been playing in terms of a new release, anybody else have anything new that they've been playing? No Horizon Forbidden West? No Elden Ring waiting around for launch day?
No games, but if the podcast stays together, then you can thank CyberPower PC.
Oh, right. Well, that is, yes, right? Having a new PC. Thank you, CyberPower. I will jump in here with this week's new release of Destiny 2 Witch Queen. So I had a chance to, Witch Queen came out on Tuesday. I had a chance to play through a handful of the story missions and engage with some of the new systems. No surprise, it's still Destiny, but it's also, I'm going to say it's the closest that Bungie has come to Halo-style campaign missions since Halo, in terms of these are not a lot of Destiny's campaign missions have been run from here to there, defend. It's been recycling of assets. Some of these are specifically made environments for campaign missions. They are pulling in some of the platforming and puzzle solving pieces that have come in some of the dungeons or in the raids. That there's more complexity to this. It's not simply a run and gun, but there's a little more navigation. It brings two new environments here Return of Mars and a new environment with the Queen's Throne World. So this is a hive. This is the sister of the Taken King in 2015. I don't need to get into too much Destiny lore, but the fact that it does do some things with Guardians and having some hive Guardians throws some new complexity in terms of other enemies that you're fighting. And you start for the first time with the ability to craft some weapons. So as you get, and crafting weapons isn't necessarily in terms of finding materials to make a weapon, but you are adding your perks. So you can craft a weapon with your own perks on it and have that modified as you go. As you earn more kills with it, it can level up and add additional perks to it as well. So that's one of the new functions within the Witch Queen. Also, they've started to revise some of their class pieces. So Void 2.0 is what they're calling it. So one of the three original classes, Solar, Void, and Arc. You have some additional features within there. You still have, jump and grenade and melee, but you get a few extra tweaks to it. That a charge punch actually releases some things that make it unique and make it feel a little bit more nuanced. That the skill tree that you're getting in Void 2.0 actually feels a little closer to what the original skill trees were like in Destiny 1, where you had a little more granularity, a lot more nodes to fill out. So there's some pieces there as well. So I haven't made it all the way through the campaign, kind of chipping my way through. Everybody starts off at 1350 and makes their way up to about 1550 as a soft cap, and then can make it up a little further depending on your activities. Anybody else pick up Destiny 2? Swiss, there's a new Gambit mode, or they've retooled Gambit once again. Again, yep. Not going to get you back in, but that's okay. So yes.
I don't know. I'll put it on my wish list, and maybe when there's a sale or something. But Gunfire Reborn has been scratching that itch. So
sure, I could see that. Right, a little bit of co-op gunplay and a little bit of grinding and leveling and persistence there.
And I could have sworn that there was at some point when they had perks on the weapons that you could kind of adjust, or was it only certain weapons or something that there was always something that you could do to slightly tweak?
Weapons have had perks. There was a time when you could, I think it was even in Destiny 1, where you had weapons that had perks that you could choose one or the other in it. Yes. So
I had a tough time while you were going through that, trying to. Well, there were a couple things I was having a hard time tracking. I wanted to
trying to make sense of the somebody way up in Destiny,
and I'm relying on you for living my Destiny life gratuitously through you. is it fun? Is my question. And then two, when you talked about like the Halo-like missions, like I don't remember, and maybe it's because I'm not thinking about it the right way. I just don't remember Halo being puzzly. And so I just kind of wanted to kind of talk through that. And then two other questions. Is that a new headset? And is that a Destiny 2 shirt that you're wearing?
Okay, from the back, yes, this is a Destiny 2 shirt. This is a new headset to the podcast, not to me. So in terms of Halo being puzzly like, you're right. I wouldn't say that Halo missions are puzzly like. What I guess the comparison I'm making is that Halo missions were unique spaces, where in a lot of Destiny, all the way back from Destiny 1, you were kind of, running similar spaces, or you were crossing over with shared spaces. And so having something that is designed as a campaign mission is where I'm thinking of it within the Halo mindset of these are specifically designed missions versus kind of repurposed assets and stitched together.
Yeah, I can see that. When I talk about Destiny 2, and I talk about one of the things that I really enjoy is that ability to kind of change the geometry of the battle, both vertically and horizontally, and duck into cover and reposition and pop up somewhere else and lay down fire from that other direction, and you can see the enemies all swing and shift their focus. I do, while I enjoy that, I pretty sharply remember the exact levels when that's happened because they're the only ones that are that unique, right? And there's a lot of like open expanse, and Destiny 2 is a great looking game, but there's a lot of areas that are just open expanse, laying down fire on enemies, and yeah, I see what you're saying. They don't leap out in your memory as being like unique experiences, except for like the handful here and there.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. That is the case. Whether it's fun, I would say yes. I guess, it's more Destiny. I mean, this isn't necessarily going to suddenly make people love Destiny. It's better than Destiny's been in the past couple of years in terms of not only in terms of story missions, in terms of progressions, in terms of kind of, New Light was good. It was a great entry point. But it also, the story wise of it wasn't so great. I mean, this is story wise, because it ties back into Taken King in 2015, it is, there's some nuance with it, which is surprising to say, right? Because Destiny and nuanced storytelling hasn't really happened except for maybe, Forsaken and the revenge story there. But there is some new wrinkles in this. Not only are we teaming up more with the Cabal, but also the fact that there are Hive Guardians is something that we haven't faced before. So I've been, in terms of Destiny 2, I would put this kind of maybe at this point right in there with Forsaken, kind of above most everything else in Destiny 2. Whether or not it kind of, there's some talk online of whether it reaches the heights of Taken King back in Destiny 1. I'd have to wait and see what it all looks like and how long the trail of things goes. I also know that I'm never going to see all of it because some of it is way more grindy than I'm going to get to, but there's a lot here, and it is some pretty new environments and enjoyable. Yeah, again, Swiss, I think look for a sale, look for a bundle when it pulls things back together. It's also because it's whatever the hodgepodge is that Destiny 2 is now, you could probably play the free version of it and still play Gambit or Strikes in rotation, just not the story mission pieces. Like, this is kind of the odd spot where it's at in terms of I'm almost tempted to download it on, maybe I will, on PlayStation or on Xbox, just to see what you have access to in the free, in the free to play version versus the content here. So
I did come onto the original, like way back whenever Destiny 2, I came onto that like a year or so late. as well. But then that's good because it's almost like the pressure's off and you can just do what you want and progress through the game. So we'll see.
I have two other questions. I'm curious as to why do you think that Swiss is the only other one of us who might be interested?
And that's fair. You have played plenty of Destiny and Destiny 2 and have come back to it multiple times on multiple systems. I don't know. I am thinking of it that I guess I'm thinking of Swiss as a lapsed fan where you enjoy the gunplay, you enjoy kind of the environments of it. It's something that makes its way into your rotation here and there. Is that correct, Game?
Yeah, I dabble here and there. So I was just putting you on the spot.
No, that's fine, right? I think it is like it's more of a question of like in any expansion, like what's going to bring somebody back? Is it familiar enough to keep people engaged? Is it new enough to bring somebody back in? And I think that's a hard line to split for any franchise.
I'm looking up on Steam the hours played for Destiny 2 for GameLogIQ and me. So.
Okay. Yes. Okay. While you do that, I'm gonna give Tao a chance to see if he wants to respectfully bow out of the Destiny talk and move on, or if he's taken umbrage with the fact that I have not included him as a Destiny fan as well.
I think my stance on Destiny is well known. I'm this fat guy, but no, I mean, like when I like playing it when we were playing with you guys. I mean, that's fine. But I don't like seek it out just by myself to play it. There was a few times I think last year I tried to like jump into multiplayer and I just got destroyed. So I was like, yeah, that's not for me anymore. So let's just go out and do something else. But yeah, I mean, if it's something like that, maybe if there's ever like a Destiny 3 or whatever their next Destiny game is, I might jump into that one. But every once in a while, I'll jump in there, take a look.
Yeah, I mean, Tal, you have a gaming PC now, and the game's free to play. Like, there's really...
Oh, sure, I forgot about that. Yeah.
There's really... I'll call it barriers. I won't call it excuses, but there are very few remaining.
I mean, I own it. I own it on Xbox, too. So, I mean, I don't really need... I mean, yeah, obviously it's free to play on PC, but, I mean, that's fine.
And Swiss, while you're checking my receipts on Steam, just remember that's one of 4 platforms that I've played on. So
right, yeah, because you've even played on
preemptively-
Stadia.
right.
He's
All right.
preemptively defending the fact that I have 33% more time, more hours than he does.
And I would not fight you.
Oh no, actually 50% more hours.
I would not fight you that you have more time than I do. I would just say that I don't think that it's as lopsided as singularly looking at Steam makes it appear.
All right. So I'm going to jump into something that I have not spent a whole lot of time on, but this week is Steam's Next Fest. So they're game demos of upcoming games. Last year when I dabbled into this, I found a number of games that stayed on my list, some that even made it onto our superlative show, but things that I kind of tracked throughout the year. I have had a chance to download many of them. Some of these I had heard of before, like Card Sharks, I think that's the one. It was announced for Switch, hasn't quite come out yet. A couple others that had been announced previously, but some of the ones that I've played, as I'm looking back and looking at the ones that are kind of not brand new, Soldiers, the Chains of Fury was announced. Chains of Fury is kind of cel-shaded first-person action game, very much in the Duke Nukem Doom aspect of things. So much so that it's got a Duke Nukem poster in the first level. But it's got a good sense of style. The kind of art style really works well in terms of cel-shaded, animated, kind of comic book-y, with some over-the-top gunplay and action. It was originally supposed to be coming out last fall, and it continued to get delayed. So I was glad to have a chance to play it. It's still coming out sometime in 2022. Also played Ninja Essen, pixelated ninja kind of momentum-based side-scroller action game. Along the side-scroller action games, Super Catboy, which really I just tried because it had a 90s-like Genesis Super Nintendo trailer to it, and it pretty much, you can do a lot with an art style and some good guitar riffs. And Super Catboy is nothing special in terms of you haven't seen it before of a side scroller action game, but it controls really tight. It's got some good sound design. Definitely something that I'll keep an eye on in terms of some retro pixel art and things like that. Speaking of pixel art, Soldiers was another game that I played some of. It's gotten some press coverage out on Kotaku, some other game sites, Destructoid, I think, as well, that it is, surprise, it's a roguelike to some degree, but you kind of are rotating through a number of different characters, different soldier types. So whether it's a scout, a knight, a magician, some ranged attacks, magic attacks, melee attacks, it's really smooth in terms of its pixel art and controls. Definitely one that I'm putting on my wish list to come back to, just simply on the design aspects of it and a solid 2D roguelite aspects to it as well. And then finally, as you all know, I am a sucker for a good or even a moderate 3D platformer, and Cow the Kangaroo was announced back in the end of 2001. It now has a demo out. It's supposed to be coming out later in summer of 2022. Cow the Kangaroo, it plays basically like what you would expect. You are a kangaroo moving around in a 3D platformer with some magical boxing gloves. It feels very kind of Crash Bandicoot-like. Maybe not quite as fast, but in that same type of art style and design from the Toys for Bob most recent Crash Bandicoot. Really solid, I don't know that it is going to do anything amazing, but it's not a genre that sees a whole lot of releases on a regular basis, unlike a 2D roguelike where there's, scratch and itch and there's plenty of them, or a card-based battler. Card-based battler based on Dante's Inferno characters and the 9 levels of hell is out there as well. There's some Final Fantasy Tactics-like games out there. One of the ones that Silt is another one, black and white scuba diving game. Kind of, I'm trying to remember the game on PlayStation. Not Adrift, anyhow. But a scuba diving kind of artsy, very Zen-like aspect to it as well. So lots of games. The Steam Next Fest runs until the 28th. So if you're listening to this and you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, and it's before the end of February, grab a few downloads, look at some of the stuff out there. It's a great way to dabble into a number of upcoming releases and find some things that you might not have ever heard about or thought about that could make your wish list. So, and the wish list aspects in Steam is really it's become very valuable for developers in terms of having wish list numbers to show to publishers in order to help get some additional support and publishing dollars as well. So those are my quick hits and new releases from this week. We're going to loop back around to our PickZ PlayZ assignment, which was to dive into a Sony first-party game. Something that is, now that a Sony first-party game can be available on multiple platforms, PC, even with the announcement of MLB The Show coming to not only back to Xbox, but also to Switch now. Looking at some of Sony's other first-party studios and some of their game releases. So I'm going to start. I wasn't here last week, but I'm going to start with our tangential new release in the Horizon Zero Dawn, Horizon Forbidden West family with Aloy. Tao, you have picked up Horizon Zero Dawn on PC. This is kind of you talked about this a little bit last week in terms of your first foray into Sony first party 3D character action games in quite a while.
Yeah, so I think, like I mentioned, PS2 was my last Sony console. So when the PC games started coming out from the Sony platform, I was kind of excited for this one. Pretty excited for this one, Horizon Zero Dawn. Third person action kind of RPG-ish game, I guess. I haven't gotten too far into it. I think I'm about to go into her trial, I believe. I don't know if you actually have to go through the trial or if it's just like a cinematic or whatever.
Yeah, that's kind of you're still kind of in those intro stages.
Yeah, I got through baby Aloy. Not really baby, but she's like 6 years old still. I was like, wow, they're having her like do all this training and stuff. They kind of do like a montage, like an 80s montage of her training and stuff like that. So that's cool. But yeah, but just the gameplay itself, I didn't realize there was going to be I don't want to say a lot of sneaking, but there's kind of a bit of like kind of sneaking around, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it doesn't seem like you have to do it all the time. I guess it's kind of maybe required here and there. There's that one beast that I had to kind of sneak around a little bit initially, just so I can set up traps and stuff at the beginning. So, sorry, DB, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, like, I remember sneaking quite a bit early on until you kind of level up and can start taking on some of the robotic beasts. Again, it's not necessary like combat versus trapping. You've got a couple different ways to go about it, but yeah, they do force you down some of the stealth aspects initially just to give you an introduction to those systems.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's good. So it's good to hear. So,
and I think it's,
but yeah, go ahead.
Kind of like DB said, I mean, it's different than like a Splinter Cell type of stealth, right? Or
right. Yeah.
Even a Metal Gear Solid kind of stealth. It's a tactical stealth, with purpose and intent for you to eventually go to more of a direct, kinetic kill. To me, sort of akin to, stealth in Death Stranding and maybe even Far Cry 5 to a certain extent.
Yeah, and I like how, the device kind of shows you the paths that the beasts are kind of going to, which is kind of nice. So it's kind of cool. Makes it easy, I guess. But yeah, no, but I'm enjoying this. It's kind of right up my alley. I've always liked, and not just like Sony properties too, but like third-person adventure games. So I like the bow. I've always I think I mentioned that last week too, like the bow and arrow that you get initially. I don't know if you get other weapons. I mean, you got the spear, I guess, for right now too. I don't know if you can upgrade all that stuff. I'm assuming you can upgrade like the bow, at least the arrows and stuff. It looks like you can get like flame arrows, and I'm assuming there's others down the road. But I've always liked that kind of weapon in the game, and pretty much any game. So I'm really enjoying it, and I'm definitely going to be playing more through this, and just kind of, and I like the I'm assuming futuristic. You're on Earth, I'm assuming, but you don't know, I guess. So you're trying to figure out what's going on. So and that the beginning piece too was pretty cool with the 6-year-old Aloy, going through the, I don't know, some kind of like station or something, figuring out, going to different people and listening to the recordings and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool. So, and usually that kind of stuff like that, I'm like, if I find it, I like, okay, I'll kind of listen to stuff, like in Halo or other games like that. But this is, it kind of brings you into like maybe possibly what happened in this world. So I'm definitely in it for the story and for the gameplay. So that's pretty rare, I think, for a game, at least for me, that I found a game like that. So
yeah, I think it does those story elements really well. Guerrilla did a good job there, and in part because you are unraveling that mystery. I mean, I think that in some degree, some of the press coverage around Forbidden West has been a little bit of a knock on that game compared to Horizon Zero Dawn, because the story here is so tight. I've heard some kind of criticisms or things maybe don't live up to Forbidden West doesn't live up to Zero Dawn's narrative aspects in those ways, because it isn't that intro story, and which is true in a lot of media, right? It's easier to tell an origin story and to give you something that's tight and focused than to necessarily kind of expand that.
Yeah,
So yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot that the gameplay is better in Forbidden West, and I don't really see a problem with the gameplay right now. So I don't know if it's something later on, like if there's a lot of action and it doesn't kind of quite gel, or I don't know what like the problem was with the gameplay in this first game so far.
No, I think those comments are mostly about that Forbidden West implements some new combat modalities and animations that are just expansions upon. I think it's a complimentary statement rather than a knock on.
I would agree that it's not necessarily that it's an evolution of that combat, not necessarily a correction for it.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that just kind of threw me. I guess that's why I was like, oh, I don't see any problems with anything.
Can I ask, so are you playing with a controller or a mouse and keyboard?
I am playing with a controller. Yeah, anytime I play any kind of third-person game on a PC, I have to play with a controller because I can't. And I'm always afraid I'm going to like break my mouse or my keyboard when I'm playing like action games like that. So I'm like, controller can take it a little bit better, I think. So yeah, I'm doing a controller.
So
I haven't had any issues so far.
What kind of controller are you using?
Xbox One, actually. Well, right now I have in my rotation because I like to rotate them out. I'm using the Forza Horizon 5 Xbox One or Xbox Series X controller.
Such a conflict of interest.
That yellow and pink.
See-through, yeah. It's transparent or see-through controller that I'm playing on a PC on a Sony game, so it's interesting.
So what is your PC running a 3060 Ti, and what's been like the graphic and visual experience?
3070. I have a 3070, and no, I haven't had any issues. I got everything maxed out, so I've taken a few pictures here and there, and they look great. I've seen a couple other Discords where people were taking pictures from the game, and I guess they had issues with like blurring in the background or something was like blurring in the picture. And I guess it was just because of their graphic card was, I guess, couldn't handle it or something was off. But so far I haven't seen anything gameplay wise or like stuttering or, any kind of issues at all. So it's been pretty smooth.
That could have also depended on when they took it, right? Because when the game initially launched, it did have some performance issues that were eventually patched and corrected. So those could have been early on experiences.
Yeah, and the only... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that, and then I can't remember. So I think it was when it initially launched, and then there just weren't a ton of the 3000 series RTX cards out there. So I think getting those out to people also, surfaced some additional things that eventually got worked out.
Yeah. The only thing that kind of bothers me is when they're doing the cutscenes. And you see the people like talking. There's this like I don't know. I think it's like a Sony thing, but you kind of have that like kind of angled. You're not really looking at the person. You're like kind of looking at them from the side, and it I don't know. It just bothers me for some reason. It just looks kind of off. I think it's because they kind of blur the background a little bit too when people are talking, and it's just like a cutscene. It's not like in-game stuff or anything like that. I don't know. I've noticed that too, like an Uncharted, and I think even Spider-Man.
It's kind of a cinematic angle to it is what they're trying to do.
And it just, I don't know, the characters, and it sounds weird, but the characters just don't seem natural when I'm looking at when it's like that angle or something. I don't know. It's just kind of weird for me.
It's interesting you said it. I'm trying to remember, maybe it was a Nextlander podcast where they were talking about Forbidden West and how all of the story interactions, the cutscenes or the conversations that they've had with NPCs are not static, that somebody's always moving, they're doing something, they're talking as they're sharpening a knife or stacking boxes, that they've shot it in such a way to try to make it feel a little more natural, that somebody's not just, BioWare standing there to answer your question until you choose the next prompt, that there's some type of life that they're existing in while they're having that conversation. So let's stay on a Sony PC, and I want to know, GameLogIQ, you're playing God of War on PC. You've already played it to some degree on PlayStation 4. How's the PC experience? What specs are you running it at? Back to your question to Tao, what controller are you using?
oh, there ain't no party like a Sony first party exclusive, and a Sony first party exclusive won't stop. I thought that's what you were going to break out into when you introduced this topic. It's been, as I mentioned to Tao last week, and I'm not sure if you had a chance to hear that segment, but like it's just, I mean, it's amazing. It's like having played it on both. You know, and no offense to Sony fans of Sony hardware, but like what I said last week was anybody who plays God of War on PC and doesn't realize or think or walk away with the perspective, you know, to take NVIDIA's tagline, like doesn't think of that as the way that game was meant to be played. Like I just wouldn't understand that perspective. It is, you know, and I'm actually I played it on this same system that I'm podcasting from tonight. So this is an AMD Ryzen 5 5600X with an ASRock Radeon 6700 XT in it, and it's just a phenomenal experience. And it, you know, not only the graphical experience, but just like what I want to call it, the segment where you defeat like the second kind of troll or whatever that's like a fire troll where you're fighting him, and then there's some like little minions like running around as well, all of them throwing fire at you at various times. After that, there is I can't remember what it's called. It's one of the rune things where it has the 3 symbols on the casket, and then you have to find out where the other 3 runes are in the area. It's one, and I think it's one of the first ones that's timed, and where you have to hit the runes within a certain periodicity of each other, or else it kind of starts the challenge over. And this is also the first time that the runes are all like dispersed. They're on like different parts of the map, so you can't. Up until then, like you could stand in one spot and hit all 3 of the runes, but this one you had to like run and then run back, and then, you know, and 2 of them are elevated. So the only way to do it is to really like chuck the axe like a far distance away, recall it as you're running towards the other one, right, and chuck it again. Playing that on controller, I was literally on that section for like 20 to 30 minutes, like doing that over and over and over again to try and do it. I did it on PC in like 2 tries with mouse and keyboard. Like the refinement of controls is just shocking, right? In comparison, and again, that's not to belie, you know, or malign anyone who goes at it with a controller experience. It's a matter of being on the PC, and as you know, we always talk about being able to tailor the experience to what you want and what works best for you. And so, it's, like I said, I mentioned to Tal last week. You know, I'm playing it on, you know, on a curved screen, 27-inch, 144 hertz display, and getting like, you know, usually the game runs in like the low 120s, and periodically pitches up, you know, to 144.
That's silky smooth and pretty. Yeah, nice. All right, my assignment here was Spider-Man Remastered on the PlayStation 5, and really, it's been fun to listen to both of you guys talk about Horizon Zero Dawn and God of War on PC, because I completely agree. Part of my rationale for a PlayStation 5 was really to play the games I wanted to play on PlayStation 4 without having to wait for loading times. And to do it in a 4K fidelity. So I can appreciate the benefit of God of War Horizon Zero Dawn on a good quality PC running those specs. So the thing, I don't have a lot to say on Spider-Man Remastered because it's still Spider-Man from 2018 and it's still a whole lot of fun. The thing that I remember about the remaster was the hubbub around the change in Peter Parker models, right? That they had changed the Peter Parker model from the 2018 character to a different character. The controversy at the time was that it was more Tom Holland looking like. Being a few years removed from that controversy, you don't even think about it, right? Like playing it through again, it's like, yeah, it's just Peter Parker. It looks like a Peter Parker. Peter Parkers have looked different. You know, No Way Home has told us that Peter Parker can look different and still be just fine. So it's funny to come at it a few years after, you know, having some separation of some fanboy strife and not really having to worry about it and just enjoying the web swinging. So
have you played Miles Morales?
Yes. Yep. On PlayStation 5 and 4 as well. Yep. It's a tighter game. You know, it's a prettier game because it's a little more refined. It's a smaller space, so the density is a little nicer. I think the Miles Morales story is a little better as well in part because the character he's new-ish to that role. You get some of that inexperience piece where the Spider-Man that you're getting here has been Spider-Man. It'll be interesting to see how they bring those two characters together into whatever Insomniac does for Marvel Spider-Man 2. But yeah. All right, let's move off of our assignment and into the rest of our round robin. I am going to go by our list, even though I want to get Swiss on the mic. But first off, Tao, you've been playing some Apex Legend. Apex Legend is having some 9v9 control going on right now. Talk us through that mode. How long does this last, and does it change up the dynamic for you?
I'd say it would last. Man, I didn't really check the time, but I'd say about like 10 to 15 minutes. So it's definitely a lot shorter than a battle royale game, which is usually like 20 to 30 minutes, depending on, you know, if you can get near the end of the round. But yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's controlled just like we've played in any other, you know, game, Halo or Call of Duty. You know, you got the 3 points on the map that you have to get to and take control. And as you do, if you start to gather points as you control these the different control points, and if you have more than one, obviously you get, you know, it starts going up faster. So it's a good kind of like tug of war, kind of push and pull. You know, you're fighting for these different points, and it's probably like 2 different maps that I've played so far. I don't know how many there are actually, and it's pretty fun. I like it. It's definitely it's nice because, you know, you're obviously respawning in. You know, after you die, it's not like a battle royale where you gotta sit there and either wait for your team or, you know, just go on to the next level or the next map, next match. So it's kind of nice that you can, you know, kind of spawn and get back into the action. You still have your powers obviously for each legend. And they kind of just, I think it just kind of like on a timer, you kind of just get them, you know, well, I guess in the Battle Royale too, it does that. It seems to be a little bit quicker though. I think you start with your kind of secondary, not really your ultimate, which is kind of like the bigger one. So that's kind of nice. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's breath of fresh air from the normal Battle Royale game that you're playing in Apex Legends. But I've been playing that too because I don't know, I just kind of got back into it. I know my son's been playing a little kind of off and on the last few weeks, and, you know, he's pulled me in a few times, and I just start playing it again. So it's I actually played it with another friend sometime during the weekend. I believe it was the weekend last weekend. I hadn't played for a while. He actually plays all the time, and he was on. He's always on. So I got to play with him for a little bit. So no wins, unfortunately. At least not in the regular battle royale. I've had a few wins in control. And that's another thing, you know. Battle royale, at least for me, I mean, I don't get a ton of wins, at least not in Apex Legends. So it was kind of nice just to kind of have some wins every once in a while in the control mode. So it's kind of nice. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Nice. Excellent. Okay, GameLogIQ, before you jump into your next game, why on Stadia? So last week we had articles from Ars Technica about Google killing Stadia, or Google should kill Stadia. We also had last week we had an editorial on Wired about that Stadia being a failure. We've got the Business Insider article from earlier in February talking about not meeting expectations. So did you choose Resident Evil 7 on Stadia because why? And how was it part of the Stadia Pro or talk us through what's your experience been with the gold edition of Resident Evil 7?
Yeah, my feeling on, so Stadia has suffered public opinion strife, since its inception. For whatever reason, the Twitterdoms and the other social media spaces have chosen it to be a target to be run through the mud. But my feeling has always been it has a tactical purpose in my menagerie of like where I choose to game. It makes sense and it works. And having a large chunk of my life that is spent in the network engineering space, any instances of less than perfect performance, I have found technical reasons for that to be true, and I would have the same impediments on anything else I was trying to do on the network, right? So it's not I haven't found it to be a shortfall from its what its technical capabilities are supposed to be. Obviously, if I'm trying to play Stadia, 120 miles from the nearest colo where it's coming out of, then obviously that's going to cause a problem, right? So, and people trying to play it over Wi-Fi and having problems, I'm like, I would have to understand how the Wi-Fi is in your house before I would blame that on, the original source of So, it's always worked for me and it's always been fine. I still subscribe to Stadia Pro. And Resident Evil 7 Biohazard is part of my Pro package, so I have a number of games in there that I have available. And since I no longer have consoles, it is the one experience that I have that is, come home, sit down in front of any given device and just push a button and go, and not have to deal with. I have a whole little checklist of things that I do before I start up a game on PC. Check your drivers. Make sure that the game is loaded. Do an initial boot. Blah blah blah. So I do that the day before I'm going to start a story arc on the PC. All of which is normative for me in my PC experience, so it doesn't bother me. But Stadia is just that one experience where I just walk up to a thing and hit a button and launch it and go and don't have to worry about any kind of background infrastructure. Yeah.
What episode did I miss where you don't have consoles anymore?
See, and I was thinking, I'm not going to say that because I'm sure it was last week and I just must have missed it. So
yeah, it was last week. I think last week I technically still owned consoles. I think they were over here. I think the statement, Tao, I can't remember, was that they were over in a corner of the room waiting for disposition. But since then I have sold off my PS5 and traded in my Xbox Series S and moved the Nintendo Switch upstairs. So there's nothing in the game studio now but PCs.
So can I ask your trade-in? Did you do GameStop? Did you trade it? And your PlayStation, did you sell it for retail or what'd you sell it for?
I sold my PlayStation 5 for a GameLogIQ normative kind of purchase price, with the same algorithms that I've used to, sell things to you guys in the past few years.
Sure.
I didn't try and take advantage over the shortage in supply, and all that. I actually sold it. So I sold, I depreciated a little off of it for the amount of time.
That's exactly what I was going to say is, you factored in some depreciation. Yeah.
But I packed all the accessories along with it. I consider those sunk costs. So, and I know that those are in short supply as well. So, I packed those in with the person who bought them so that they could enjoy a PlayStation 5 the way that it's meant to be enjoyed, right? With all the, Sony first-party proprietary, accoutrements to go along with it.
I remember you boxed up your consoles at one point, but then you opened the box again.
No, I during the brief moment in time that I was frustrated with Microsoft and Amazon and other people not solving the bot and scalping problem that I still feel like they could have addressed, I sold off my last generation consoles at that time with no intention of buying the next generation consoles. But then when the next generation consoles dropped, I got, filled with FOMO and nostalgia, and like it was able to get a hold of them. That was the key thing, without a ton of effort. So yeah, that's how that last divide went. But yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you have more to say on Resident Evil 7 or on the performance of it? Anything?
Yeah, I mean it's been fine. I didn't live stream it. I did record some sections of it and posted those. Performance wise, it looked great. It didn't look that much further from it's got kind of a drab color palette to it, so it really didn't look so it doesn't have that color popping kind of effect that you get with like HDR and stuff. And so it looks fairly comparable to how it looks, on a console or PC. And I didn't experience any hiccups with it in its performance on Stadia. It is an anxiety-driven, kind of event to have to live through. The Resident Evil framework and paradigm of design is one that they're probably just never going to be able to walk back from. What I was thinking yesterday was, Resident Evil suffers from very much the same kind of legacy that Windows does, right? You're never going to be able to extract all of the things out of the Windows design because, everybody's going to flip. Like when they changed the start menu, like with Windows 8, like everybody flipped out, even though you could get to the legacy start menu, right, with the flip of a switch, right, and make it act just like it did, you were accustomed to. Everybody flipped out because they had moved it and done something different with the default. Resident Evil suffers, I think, from that, whereas it's not going to be able to ever change some elements of its inherent design because that's what people expect. And so I personally have never particularly liked you're on like the next level on the next part of the map, can't get through a door, find the thing, but yet you have to go like all the way back to the first section of the map to get to like the one save point that where it is, right? Because maybe you found one on the second part of the map, but you don't remember where it is, right? So, but I will also say this Resident Evil for me has some of the best combat that I've experienced in a Resident Evil game. Some of the most like interesting combat that doesn't feel like a bunch of repetitive pattern findy kind of things. And it intermixes some elements of like melee and unique weapons and ranged combat. And also just has some parts where, again, it's a thing that I'm accustomed to in a Resident Evil game, right? There's parts where I'm in a map and then like something just snaps and I go, oh, this is a section you're not supposed to fight the monsters, you're actually just supposed to run through. So because years of experience of like that being part of their inherent design paradigm. But it's really good. It's really super creepy. I've never completed the game, so I don't know what Ethan does for a living. There are points in the game where I'm like, this dude should be a little more flipped out, right, about like what's going on. He should be talking to the cop in a slightly more heightened and elevated, right, persona. So, but it's been really interesting so far, minus the run and fetch kind of mission structure to it.
Yeah, no, I always have thought like Ethan should have called the cops before he even stepped foot in that house the first time. Like, really? Come on, that's a creepy house. Get out of there. Anyhow, but so the Gold Edition, are you playing just the main story, or because the Gold Edition also has like the Chris Redfield, little more actiony DLC as well?
Yeah, I haven't gotten to that point yet. And this is a game that I bought at launch and just played like the first like introductory things of it because I'm not particularly crazy about creepy.
Yeah, I remember you streamed it for a while on PC because then I picked it up on VR and then subsequently put it down on VR as well.
Yeah, it was 2017, so I just got distracted by Horizon Zero Dawn and other things that came out, Breath of the Wild, etc. So but it's been playing good and it's been a good experience. There have been some nights that I've come home and I've like looked at my watch and I'm like, man, it's really late. I'm not sure that I'm up for this, right? So however long I'm going to play, I'm going to need to spend like 30 minutes watching a sitcom or something afterwards before I can go to bed. But I'm happy that, on those nights where I was really close to saying like, I think I'm going to pick up Destiny 2 or something that's like not super creepy, but I'm glad that I pushed through it and got through a little more of the story. I think I'm fairly close to 50%-ish of the way through, and it's supposed to be like about a 9-hour game, so it's been fun.
Nice.
Fun in air quotes.
Yeah, it's been enjoyable. Yes. All right. So, Swiss, you've been patient as we've given you a send-off and made you wait to talk about any game that you've actually played. So, but you've been playing one of my favorite games over the last few years, a game that I have still been playing on a regular rotation, Retro Bowl. So last 2 weeks ago, we talked about it because I had picked it up on Switch and tempted you during the Super Bowl to pick it up. And then you did. Yes. But you didn't pick it up on Switch. You picked it up on mobile. So
yeah,
how are you liking it? And why mobile versus Switch?
I had to go on a business trip to the other side of the continent, so had a long flight, and I got too many people that want the Switch, and Dad can't take it on business trips anymore.
That's a great mobile one because you don't need a network connection. You can just Yep.
So played it for several hours on the plane, and initially I was having a grand time. Like I like the speed of it. I like that they narrowed the focus. You just play the offense and just kind of goes. I enjoyed the game management aspects of it. Got excited about managing my team. It took me a little bit to kind of wrap my head though around the constraints that they were placing on the team management in regards to like the lengths of contracts versus the money, and you kind of have to go for a few seasons before you actually see, okay, don't think about it in the same way that you would read the headlines, for the NFL. Like they don't seem to have like, I can't sign Aaron Rodgers to a 10-year contract. It didn't seem to.
No, you're only getting 2 to 3 year contracts on a regular clip. Yep.
Yeah. So there's more turnover, but I noticed there's a dynamic difficulty level, and I guess I went through and I took over my team and immediately started improving them, and then like within the second season, I think, or the third season, I won the Super Bowl, right? But over time, it just seemed to be getting more and more annoying with regards to the defenders intercepting like everything. Like if the defender if like the cornerback is in any way in the line of the pass, he's like facing the wrong. He always intercepts it, and I was getting perturbed with that. And I don't know if it was cranky because I was at the end of the business trip and my flights were getting delayed, or if the game was unfair and broken. But I haven't played it for the last week.
I would say, as someone who's played it on and off through multiple patches, there was a time when everything did get intercepted. It is in a better spot now. It is more what I have found, and I have played on both dynamic difficulty at 16, and then also on extreme. And extreme is like every player on the computer's team is a 5-star player, and you're going to get interceptions like crazy. You're throwing short passes. You're underthrowing things and making receivers come back to them. But in terms of dynamic difficulty, what I have found is you have more success when you're leading somebody and you're throwing it away from the defenders and allowing your receiver to run to it as you would in an actual game. And that if I'm throwing over somebody, I have to throw, like if I'm throwing over a defender, if I even have the line on the character that I'm trying to throw to, a guy will pick it off. I have to think about throwing 5 yards over him, and then it will have enough arch. But it's hard to tell in a 2D pixel game.
Yeah, that was my big thing. It was like I understand like leading, and it just felt like I have to lead them in like the 2D plane, and I can't lead them, if they're just doing like a straight just go route, right? Like I can't drop it in ahead of them. It's just like that was what was annoying me. Like I have to make them turn in, like, go north or south to complete those passes. But
yeah, I barely ever throw to a go route because of that. I almost always look at somebody who's got an angle in the route because that gives you a vector to throw. I
started audibling to like my star receiver where it's like when they have those that kind of post route. So, but yeah, it was, I kind of got frustrated towards the end, but it's on my phone, and who knows when I'll be stuck in a line somewhere and can play like a game for like, you get it done in like a couple of minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. So whatever it is, but, I really like the style. I really enjoyed the little like events that would come up, and you have to like kind of choose whether to find the player or not. And like one of them, my star running back was playing Retro Bowl during the team meeting. So it's just, I like their sense of humor. But
yeah,
I can understand why you liked it, but I guess I have to adapt and understand how I want to play football versus I'm playing Retro Bowl, which is a slightly different thing.
That's a fair way to say it. And Tao, you've played Retro Bowl for a while as well, right?
Yeah, that was actually that was the same reason I stopped playing, because I started getting interrupted all the time. So I was like, you know what, screw this, I'm not playing this anymore. And I had gone like through, oh man, I don't know how many like seasons, and I think it was pretty much the same as Swiss, where it was like second or third season I won the Super Bowl, and I think I won maybe like a couple more after that, and then it was just like god awful. Like I was just getting picked off all the time, like, no matter what I did. So I was like, you know what, I'm done. So I might pick it back up one day too, though. We'll see. Maybe for the Switch when I have some gold coins.
Yeah, right, on the Switch. It's a little different on the Switch.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, it is the same game if you're playing touchscreen. If you play with a controller, you've got to use the stick to kind of create that same arc. So it's a different challenge because my muscle memory is based on a touchscreen.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
I'll also add that I made a mistake, and I cut my star kicker and just like signed a guy, and then it didn't go well very quickly.
Yeah, no, I almost always have to sign a free agent kicker because there's just not talent out there in the draft for him. Yeah.
So.
Okay. I could always talk about Retro Bowl. I am looking at my phone right now, and I've got 96 seasons on it. So in 3 different save files, because you can only go 40 years and then you have to retire. So anyhow, but I did pick up started a new franchise in Madden 22. Madden 22 came out on Game Pass shortly after the Super Bowl. So my friend and I, who have been playing through Madden 20 and 21, doing we did 7 seasons in 20 and 4 or 5 seasons in 21, have now started in 22. And I have taken on the Commanders, and he's the Giants, and kind of experiencing the new scouting system within Madden 22. But I'll have more to talk about that. But again, it's still Madden, but it's on Game Pass, and we did get some Game Pass related news this week, not only in terms of Microsoft and Activision, but also Bethesda transitioning off their launcher as well. GameLogIQ, I'm going to toss this over to you because you threw these 2 stories into the agenda.
Yeah, and these stories, which of course I didn't pull up on my screen because I wasn't hosting tonight. The launcher story was actually dropped into the Discord by, was it you, Tao, or you, Swiss? I can't remember which one of you two dropped it.
I might have done the launcher. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that they announced that they were moving everything over to Steam, and that you can migrate your game over. That they're shutting down the Bethesda launcher.
For you guys, because I know you love your launchers out there.
This directly from the Bethesda blog, sunsetting the Bethesda.net launcher and migrating to Steam. We're saying goodbye to the Bethesda.net launcher this year. Starting in early April, you'll be able to migrate your games and wallet to your Steam account. For more details on what this process will look like, read on. I haven't read on because I don't have any games through the Bethesda launcher. I think, did they only implement that at Fallout 76?
I think it started for Fallout 76. I remember it for Wolfenstein Youngblood. I mean, it was recent. I mean, as recent as Fallout 70. Yeah. So within the last 5 years.
I think the reality is that I only ever played Bethesda games on console, and I definitely did not buy Fallout 76. And so from Fallout 76, I don't think I, through any means, pulled down a Bethesda, any type of Bethesda game until they were acquired by Microsoft and stuff started showing up in Game Pass. So I think, as much as I may have groused about yet another launcher, Yale, I don't think I actually had to cut across the Bethesda, knit any, directly at all. But, I'm always glad to see yet another launcher go away. Because despite the fact that EA Play is on Game Pass, their Origin launcher is still tightly coupled to any legacy games that came out along with it, and so to play an EA Play game on Game Pass, you will often have to download the EA Play app and the Origin launcher, which is just a sickening, torrid sort of affairs.
Right, I was just thinking that, like, you have to have both because Origin, not everything is in the EA Play beta launcher, but you need the beta launcher to be able to play anything that's in Game Pass. Yeah. And then I've even found, jumping back and forth with Madden 22 on PC, is that if I had the trial in Game Pass but tried to launch it in Origin, it wouldn't launch. That I need to go into EA Play because it's connected to Game Pass in order to launch it. So I was getting a series of errors at one point trying to run the game from the wrong launcher. But yes, Torrid Affair is right.
Do you want me to talk about the other Microsoft story?
Well, I guess if we're going to talk about Torrid Affairs, we might as well throw Bobby Kotick under the bus. So,
right. So this is this was kind of sweet news to my ears because it makes total sense and probably would have been the exact sort of thing that I would personally do myself. But it makes reference to this article actually up on CNBC just to give you a sense of how far and wide ranging the whole Activision story is and the Microsoft acquisition story is. It has jumped the shark outside of just the gaming media and is over in the normals media. Microsoft's talks with Activision started days after a report on sexual misconduct sent stock tumbling. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella reached out to Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick about a potential deal days after a media report saying Kotick had been aware of misconduct at the game publisher. Kotick subsequently reached out to a handful of other companies before the announcement of the $68.7 billion acquisition in January. The whole point of this story is it makes complete sense to me. Like, somebody that you're interested in acquiring has a series of lemony-snicket unfortunate events tanking their stock price, not necessarily tanking it, but putting a serious rub on their stock price. That would be the point where you pick up the phone and say, hey, man, I got a deal for you.
Yep.
You seem
There's
to be having
blood in the water.
problems.
Let's go.
Right. So I have to imagine that there were a number of acquisitions that were kind of in the target range for Microsoft that Phil was talking to Satya about. I don't know that Activision was necessarily the lead proposition, but this is kind of one of those wonderful business decisions that work themselves out, right? Let's just imagine that there were 3 potential acquisitions in the mix. Phil and Satya were saying, hey, for strategic reasons, one of these makes more sense than the other, but you always have those contingencies and those opportunities, which is the flip side of risks, where something is going to happen that's going to make a decision, make sense for you to pivot on a decision, right? And so This is a situation where it may have just changed the optics and what the financial numbers would have looked like, and so may have caused Microsoft to go a different way and to strike when the iron's hot, right, and take advantage of the fact that Activision was down. Interesting thing today, I think we had another news story drop that an Activision shareholder is now suing, saying that this is not the best thing for the company and that there are misleading representations in the SEC filing. That person, while maybe there might be legal tenets of that's true, and this is all back to, a few good men, it doesn't matter what the truth is, what matters is what I can prove. Like, catch a clue, man. Like, you get an understanding that this is part of the through path to get Kotick out, which everyone is clamoring for, to do it in a way where the shareholders make bank, right? Like, and is probably an upside in comparison to the potential future that they were likely being set up for. Like, I don't know that you dig your heels in and fight this, when you're probably going to come out okay. Like, I don't think there's an upside future to not being sold to Microsoft, Kotick remaining in power, and somehow that mathematically comes out as a better deal than being acquired by Microsoft.
I think the news story there is interesting too, of multiple different ones. But as you said, potential vectors of who Microsoft might be acquiring, and that their established relationship with EA, as we were just talking about with EA Play, certainly potentially was in that mix, but they did not have the catastrophe and the stock price tumbles that made them a little more susceptible or undervalued in terms of now's the time to get that deal done. Also ties in with another news story this week where there were some grumblings and rumblings about EA and DICE and their finger pointing potentially at Microsoft for the release of Halo's beta, and how that kind of, hamstringed the Battlefield 2042 release as well. And I think even EA and DICE has come out and said, it's not really, we're not pointing fingers. There's plenty of egg on our own face in terms of the way that Battlefield 2042 launched and the number of updates that it needed and the feature incomplete state that it launched in. But that again made me think of, as we were talking about potential acquisitions of Microsoft, that EA would have been in that mix.
And there's an interesting story in that Battlefield 2042 Halo Infinite mix where, and I apologize, Swiss has probably heard this from me more times than he would care to hear. There's a distinct and a stark difference, and I, maybe one day we'll have time to have a conversation about it on this podcast. There's a distinct and stark difference between a defect and a arguably design flaw, right? Halo Infinite predominantly suffered from design decisions that its community didn't agree with. That is not a bug, right? Battlefield 2042 has performance problems and bugs and defects and things that DICE has deliberately chosen to not fix. Those are two starkly different conversations. So DICE has nothing to say about Microsoft and having to compete against Halo Infinite. Like, launch your game with fewer bugs, and then maybe, there's a conversation to be had.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think back on a DICE game that launched without significant bugs, right? I mean, I don't mean to knock on DICE, and they usually, they have gotten things in a steady state at some point in time, but I can't remember a Battlefield, maybe Battlefield 3, maybe, that didn't launch in a fire, right? Battlefield 4 had lots of server issues. Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5 had plenty, and yeah. And even we're going to throw Battlefront under. I guess Battlefront 1 probably launched pretty stably in 2015. Granted, it didn't have the same loot box controversy to deal with as Battlefront 2. So, yeah, DICE has been their own worst enemy at times. That's for sure. So, Swiss, you have been playing after your trip. So this is a Switch game. So must not have taken your trip with you, but you've been playing Playdead's Inside. Had you played it before on PC or on PlayStation?
Nope, I had never heard of it before. But my wife saw an article or something, and it was on sale in the Switch eShop for like $1.99, and she's like,
$2. Yep.
Yeah, this looks cool. We should get it. So I used some gold coins and picked it up. So it was like halfway through, and I really like it. It's got a really for some of these games that are more like that artsy, very the atmosphere is heavily important. A lot of times I find like they don't meet the hype, and so when I was reading like what people were saying about this a little bit, just when I was researching it, I was like, okay, we'll wait and see. But as I played through it, they really nail the atmosphere. It's got that dystopian kind of industrial feel. And it's foreboding. Like the dogs start barking and you'll see like the flashlights in the distance, and your character is not the fastest, and like the dogs start running, and so it ramps up the tension periodically. What I think I like the most about it though is the puzzles. Like I get so it's straight up 2D. You go left to right. I mean, it's 3D design models, but like you left and right. That's it. But you have a jump button and like a grab button. But they've mixed the little puzzles up a lot, where I always find myself, once I get through it, like, that was clever. Oh, that was clever how they mixed that in. Oh, that was neat how we had to do the timing that way. So I appreciate the design. A game like Journey, which has like heavily reliant on atmosphere and everything, I was disappointed in like the puzzle. Like there wasn't really anything. So the gameplay helps. My wife has actually been watching me play, and she's getting wrapped up in the tension as well. So it's been good. I'm looking forward to finishing it. It's a quick play. I don't know if it would have been worth the $20. Like that's kind of steep for a game that short, but at $2 it's like a steal, I think.
Yeah, no, it's a critically renowned game. This is the Limbo developers, correct? Playdead?
Yeah. Yep. I will have one complaint, and it's that the load time when you boot the game up is ridiculous. Like it's like the worst on the Switch that I've seen. But
it must be loading in that entire level then. Yeah, I suppose. All right, as we wrap up, we've got 2 more games to hit on here. They are standard rotation for us at one point in time or another. Actually, Swiss, you and I 2 weeks ago were talking about No Man's Sky. GameLogIQ, you've been playing some No Man's Sky. Are you playing the new mech expansion, or?
I'm not. I'm probably not digging into that content yet. I've never really made a good campaign-oriented run at No Man's Sky, so this is the moment in time when I'm doing that. Partially inspired by your conversation of a couple of weeks ago, as you Swiss asked, when was the last time you actually played? Again, part of the transition. So I am playing it on PC. So I bought it from Steam at some point when it was. When it showed up and made that jump. What an incredible content package, right? For buying it, for whatever I bought it for, $20 or whatever on Steam, and for the amount of content that's been delivered on that game over the years, simply kind of amazing. It's kind of like getting I'd almost say like a Destiny 2 kind of scale for one purchase price. And I will admit my own fallacy that I've probably bought Destiny 2 like way too many times with way too many like expansion packs, partially because of the confusing chutzpah that's associated with Destiny 2, which is like every time one of these things comes out, every time a big expansion pack comes back, there's kind of a resetting of the purchase baseline, and it gets very confusing on what in the world the heck you're supposed to buy to bring everything up to date.
That's the beauty of No Man's Sky, right? Is that every expansion, every package that they've put together, the repackaging of the intros, the additions of co-op and expanded space battle pieces, the haunted ship stuff that they did a couple years ago, they have just the base building, all of that it's such a complete package. I mean, it's almost like a one and done MMO at this point because of how much content is there.
Yeah, and there's never any additional cost, and it's always pay one fee and get everything. So it's really amazing and really kind of a model of what you would hope, other games as a service. I mean, because it's like you said, it's the thing that is most like a game as a service that isn't technically a game as a service.
It's still the thing. I wonder, how do they make money on it though?
I don't know. And the team's gotten bigger over time. So
how much did Sony give them at the outset?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's speculation. They're after the initial launch and after all this stuff started coming out, it stopped being an exclusive. So, I don't know.
Well, and they've been on Game Pass for the last 2 years at this point, so they've got some revenue there as well.
Yeah, the other part too was when they added the Atlas space station, and you can go in there and there's like a whole nother like I don't want to say monetization, but another like in-game money system that you can do to get stuff, like mostly cosmetic stuff, and then that's free also. So I thought for sure that was going to have to be, not have to pay to get that stuff, but you could pay if you wanted to. But no, it's all just, you play in-game missions and you get the money or whatever it is, whatever the currency is. And they easily could have said, hey, we're going to put this behind, like a battle pass or something. That's what it kind of reminds me of when you go and look at that stuff. So it's interesting how how they're doing all this.
Yeah, so I've pushed a little further than I normally have gotten into, and of course it hits at one of my big things that I love, particularly in space opus types of games, which is that I can go in and rename everything to my own personal lexicon, which is a thing that I love. So I have fantasy name generator bookmarked, and so I often go over there to generate planet names and ship names and base names and all sorts of stuff. So it's pretty awesome. I'm going to go back a little bit and hit Prey also, which was a game that I wanted to talk about. So I have also, started another playthrough of Prey, again, this time on PC, having originally played the game on PlayStation 4. I think, of course, and again, the beauty now is that it's on Game Pass, which I have access to on PC. So, not a great... I was thinking as I made this turn that, man, this is not the thing that DB calls a palate cleanser to go from Resident Evil 7 to Prey, because it's, from creepy to more creepy. But again, it's a wonderful experience on PC, plays at high frame rate and it has lots of, graphical beauty to it. Controls really well. I don't remember... Well, of course, because I wasn't playing on mouse and keyboard when I played it on... with controller on PlayStation, the control scheme is just really great and works really well, including, the amount that you have to do to dive into inventory, again, a la kind of Resident Evil. It's not as complicated and as troublesome as it could be. So great interface, just gotten started with that game. Really surprising on how you can traverse a lot of the levels, which I don't remember as much, but lots of things that you can jump and clamber to, and allows the levels to scale vertically. So it's been a great time. It's also funny how, years removed from my initial playthrough, I kind of like flipped out every time a mimic came, out of nowhere, and now I think because I went to it from playing Resident Evil 7, I'm just like, mimic, let's just beat the heck out of them, right? So I can move on to the next challenging parts of the game, so from one set of more extreme jump scares, it makes the jump scares in a different game, a little like Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. That, yes, coming off of Resident Evil 7, that anything feels a little less intense. All right, one last game before we head into the wrap up here. Tao, no surprise, a little bit of Fortnite for you.
Yeah. Like I mentioned last week, I jumped back into Fortnite, and when I've had time to play something, I've played a few matches of that, and just having fun with it, just trying to get through I think the season's actually going to end, I think, in a couple weeks. Actually, now that I think about it, sometime in early March, the second week. So I look forward to that because they usually have some kind of like season-ending event. So that's always. I think they've only skipped I think they started in season 3 or 4, I think, with the events, and they've only been like maybe 1 or 2 seasons where they didn't do anything. They just kind of flipped to the next season. But they've been pretty good actually the last couple of the events. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right, Swiss, any last things on your playlist that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
I'm still playing Professor Layton, not Professor Layton, the Mystery Journey, the new one. And my opinion hasn't changed. I like the story and the atmosphere of the game, but I've been a little bit underwhelmed by the puzzles, which is a little bit of a problem in a Layton game.
Are you and Vela playing that through together?
Yeah, that's kind of just like something that we tend to like that. For whatever reason, that game is one that we always play like co-op, so to speak. But she's enjoying it, and that's why I bought it. So
nice. All right, gentlemen, this wraps us up. We are gonna just tease a little bit of our next PickZ PlayZ assignment. This week we had some rumors, or the end of last week we had some rumors about Call of Duty skipping a year. So potentially that 2023 there will be no new Call of Duty. It's a Business Insider, it's a Jason Schreier type of informed rumor. We have yet to have it confirmed, I believe. But in that vein of potentially taking a year off, potentially taking a break from a franchise, I want to have us go back and look at other franchises that have taken some time off, that used to be annual or regular, that are now more spaced out, or simply just abandoned. As I dug through my cabinet this week and saw Skylanders for Switch that I forgot I even had. Talk about an abandoned franchise, or a franchise that has been annualized or so regular that it probably does deserve a little bit of a break, a little bit of a breather, in order to give it some time to creatively reset or to find something new as well. So that's our pitch. That's our assignment for coming into March. And next week, it will be the three of us here. Myself, DBQ Hams, GameLogic, and Towmaster99 will be back, as GameLogic will be in the hosting chair. Gentlemen, any final thoughts, any shout outs, any pitches for anything before we wrap it up for the evening?
Can I just say, when you're talking about your Steam Next Fest demos, the kangaroo one, maybe it was just me because I was looking at the pictures and I was looking at the video while you're talking about it, because I had never heard of it before. Because he had the boxing gloves on. I figured his name was KO. That's how you would pronounce it.
instead
like
of
KO.
cow.
That,
Yeah,
bark.
I bet you're right. It is probably KO. Yep.
I was just wondering if that's what it was, or if that's just how you were saying it. So
No,
it
this
kind of makes
is.
sense.
I will admit that this is a blind spot in my. I mean, I can remember this was an arcade game, right? It was an Atari game. You were kind of on a single board, almost like Popeye, but you were moving up and down with a kangaroo that had boxing gloves.
Yeah.
Yep. So thank you for catching my missed pun there. All right. Again, Swiss, until we see you next time, there will always be a chair here, and I know you'll be back when you need to be. So for myself, DBQ Hams, GameLogIQ, Towmaster99, and Swisscar, this has been the Enough to Keep Going podcast, episode 230. Until next time, enjoy the games you love, play with those you love, and be kind to one another. Good night.